So I want to begin this morning by reading from the book of James, the first few verses. This letter is from James, a slave of God and the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm writing to the 12 tribes, Jewish believers scattered abroad. Greetings. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking, but when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. This is from James chapter 1, the first 6 verses. So today we start a new series in the book of James, and you're not going to believe this, but I am so excited. This is just how I am. When I get to start something new with you guys, it truly gets me excited to get to share some new things and to explore some new things. And I'm trusting that at least shortly, you'll be excited too. Wow, this is going to be good, because the book of James is a really good book in the New Testament. It's filled with practical wisdom for us as Christians. It calls us to live out our faith in tangible, practical ways through the stuff of life, right? So the situations we encounter, whatever they may be, the temptations we face, the people we deal with, that's all the stuff of life. And James hits on all of this in some really practical ways. So of all the books in the New Testament, James may emphasize practical application more than any other, in terms of here's what it looks like to walk in your faith. Some say the book of James is kind of like the Proverbs of the New Testament. It takes the gospel and offers a practical, tangible, common sense approach to here's how you live out your faith. Others might describe James in some more earthy ways. It's a book that gets in your business and tells you how to live. I feel confident that as we walk through this book together, that you're going to find all kinds of practical application for your life. And so we're going to spend the next couple of months walking through the book of James. So here's what I want to start with as we step into this. Who is James? Who are we talking about here? Because, I don't know if you are aware of this, there's more than one James in the New Testament. Fun fact, maybe you didn't realize this if you never memorized the list of disciples, 2 of the disciples were named James. There is James, who is the half-brother of Jesus as well, mentioned in the New Testament. So this James that authored this book was one of the 4 key leaders in the early church. So you would know most of them by name. Paul was one of the key leaders. Peter was one of the key leaders. John, and then James was the 4th one. So this James is the brother of Jesus, meaning also the son of Mary and Joseph. So now knowing that this is the brother of Jesus, now read the introduction again. Listen to this. This letter is written from James, a servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ. So these words are written by a man who grew up in the same home with Jesus. They slept under the same roof. They ate family meals together. Jesus was the older brother. So just stop for a minute and think about the implications of that. Nobody knows you better than your family. Like whatever people think of you outside of your home, nobody knows you like your family, right? So you can craft an image, you can have a reputation, you can work your online presence, but you're not going to fool your family, are you? Like your family members, they're the ones who know who you really are, which means this: if anyone was going to see another side of Jesus, James would have been one of those people. He is a brother who grew up with Jesus. So a little brother would see whatever pride you have on display, whatever arrogance, if you were heartless, if you were mean, if you had anger issues, if you didn't tell the truth, like James would know, hey, let me tell you the truth about this guy. Here's what it really looks like. So whatever anyone else may say about Jesus, the family would know what it's really like, right? So if the word is out there that he's a kind and thoughtful and caring man, well, the family is going to know if this is true or not. See, I don't know if you know this, but sometimes older brothers kind of have a power thing, right? They kind of lord over their siblings. Sometimes they can relentlessly dominate and demonstrate their superiority in a multitude of ways. It's practically in the job description of older brothers, right? Big brothers do things sometimes, well, because they can, because they're bigger. And so sometimes, the bigger brother looks like he's doing all the right things, but when nobody's looking, he slaps his little brother in the back of the head, right? Or hides his favorite toy just to get the reaction. This is the big brother stuff, right? So here's what I want you to just consider now. Like if anyone was going to see another side of Jesus, James would be one of those people, wouldn't he? James and his family. So here's where we're going. This is not a small thing for James, who has seen Jesus up close growing up, to say, this is the Lord Jesus Christ. So here's an interesting fact related to this. We know that James and his family did not always see Jesus this way. In John chapter 7, here's what we read. Jesus traveled around Galilee. He wanted to stay out of Judea, where the Jewish leaders were plotting his death. But soon it was time for the Jewish festival of shelters. So listen to this. Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, where your followers can see your miracles. You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, just go show yourself to the world." For even his brothers didn't believe in him. James is one of those brothers. So let's give James a little bit of slack. It wouldn't be easy being the brother of Jesus, would it? Like if a fight breaks out, it's not Jesus' fault. He's sinless, right? So you're the one with the issue. If there's a question of who's telling the truth, well, it's always Jesus. You're always going to get caught in the lie. So that would be irritating, right? But the brothers had some issues with Jesus, and it looks like it's particularly around the claims and the fame that surrounded him. So here's another interesting fact related to James. We learn this in 1 Corinthians 15. We're told that after Jesus' resurrection, he appeared to James. Not James in a group of people, but just James. And that may not sound that unusual to you, but It's the only instance we know of in all of Jesus' appearances to other people where he only appeared to one person. All of the other instances, he appeared to groups of people at the same time. And so the one person that he appeared to after his resurrection was his little brother, James. Wouldn't you love to know about that conversation? Like James would have watched all of the events that unfolded around Jesus' final days, right? The false accusations, the mocking, the instigation of the religious leaders to stir up the crowds, watching Jesus endure beatings and a crucifixion, watching him die this brutal and cruel death. And like, here's what James knows for sure, along with everybody. Like, my brother died. Jesus died, and he did so in a spectacularly public and brutal way. So can you imagine then the impact of this post-resurrection appearance to James? Like, what's your reaction? Whoa, how are you here? How is this possible? How are you alive? What possible explanations could there be for you being right here in front of me? So here's why I spend all of this time on the author, is one of the takeaways from all of this is James gives a unique and particular weight to this book. This is written by a man who uniquely knew Jesus like few others could. James grew up in the same home with Jesus. And so the fact that he believes in Jesus and calls him Lord, like, that carries a lot of weight. So after the introduction, James starts with this. When troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. So first, notice this, that it says, when troubles of any kind come your way, not if troubles come your way. So this is not just written in a way that applies to only Christians. This applies to everybody who is human. Every human being on the planet will face challenges and trials. We are a room full of evidence. Hard times come for everybody. It's inevitable. Like, it happens at work, it happens in your family, it happens when you make honest mistakes. It happens when you make stupid decisions. It happens when you're treated unfairly, when you have car trouble, financial trouble, setbacks, injuries, sickness, whatever the health issues going on, relational junk, strained marriages, broken families, damaged friendships, like all over the place, right? Challenges come our way. If we'd stop right here and say, you know what, the rest of this time, we're going to open it up for you to share some of the challenges you faced in this past year. We're going to need another week to sit here and hear the stories. And some of the stuff that we would hear, we'd know it because we've been praying about it, but other stuff might catch us off guard, like, I had no idea that that's what you've been going through, that that's what you've been carrying. Every one of us faces challenges. And these trials come, well, in unexpected and unwelcome ways. They just find their way into our lives. So in some of your translations, it says, when you encounter trials. Or in the New Living Translation that we're looking at here, it says, when trials come your way. So Jesus uses this same term that we translate come your way or encounter. Jesus uses the same term when he tells the story of the Great Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, and he tells about a man who fell into the hands of robbers. So it was an unwelcome and unexpected turn of events in that man's life. And so when these unwelcome and unexpected hard times come, and they come for everybody, James gives us this advice on how to view your troubles. This is an opportunity for great joy. How many see your troubles this way? Like, man, this is going to be so good. Like, this is I've got some health issues going on. This is going to be so good. Right? Oh, man, there's some fractured relationships in my life. This is going to be awesome. You just wrecked your car. Like, oh, some good stuff is coming now. Right? Like, let's just say, this is a unique way of seeing your troubles. Like, kind of head scratching, like, how could you possibly look at your troubles that way? So, many of you know the name Bob Ross, right? Some of you have probably watched him back in the day. And Bob Ross epitomizes like this laid back, go with the flow kind of guy. He's got this soft temperament, right? And he had a saying. He had a number of sayings, but here was one of his sayings that he used to say: there are no mistakes in painting, only happy little accidents. Right? And so if you accidentally put a small blob onto your painting, there's now a small blob of orange paint in your mountain scene. He's like, oh, don't worry, that's a happy little accident. You just work with that. And it was actually fascinating to watch him change his painting, right? Like, now there's a sunset in his painting because of the blob of orange. And so the painting would go in a whole new way. And so it was wild to watch him do this, turn these artistic accidents that we would say ruin paintings, and he'd say, oh no, it takes it in whole new directions. And this is kind of like the mindset that James is offering us in regard to our trials. These are the unexpected blobs that show up on the canvas of your life. Maybe you've experienced some of these blobs in your masterpiece, which is your life. Some people, with a little bit of grit and determination and ingenuity, manage to make the most of these smudges on their life. They become positive places, right, of growth, happy little accidents, happy little trials. But now it's woven into their life in a way that you're like, that's beautiful. What happened there? Other times, some of the trials and challenges we face, that was just a big smear, and it will always look like a big smear. That is not a happy little accident. And I'm at a loss to know how I salvage what just happened in my life, or how I see that as a positive thing. So James sees trials as something like happy little accidents that are ultimately opportunity for new directions, opportunities for joy. I don't know if you've ever, in watching it, say, I'm pretty sure if that blob showed up in my painting, we're just scrapping it. Like, that's just done. We often see those marks and smudges as ruining it, right? And so here's the thing, right? We've established that blobs and smudges are going to wind up on the painting of your life. That's what James is saying. Like, it's not if that happens, it's going to happen. So the point is this, right? If you're a human being, you're going to face challenges. And James says, when you do, don't just look at it as a setback in your life, but as an opportunity for joy. Well, how do you get to that? Where you can see your trials from that count it all joy kind of perspective. So what James invites us to do is to look at these events not from necessarily the present tense, but the future. From a perspective of what it could be and not from what it is. So when these things shock and surprise us in our lives, there is opportunity in the future for this to become a place of growth, a place of strengthening your faith. So he says, whenever troubles come of any kind, when they come your way, consider an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. So let's talk endurance for a moment here. So endurance is like the continued, sustained effort to keep going when it's hard, or even when you would rather just stop. So when you'd want to give up, endurance says, I will not give up. I keep going. So put it in real life, like your financial life may just get shaken and you don't see a way forward, but I'm not giving up and I'm going to keep going. You keep looking to God, even in spite of. Your faith may be rattled by whatever unfolded in your life, whatever blob showed up on the painting, but you don't give up. You continue to come back to God's goodness and His love, and I don't see it yet, but I think there's opportunity for joy. What's your trial? Like, put your trial now into this passage, into this idea of endurance. So here's the thing about endurance. Endurance is not like a single exceptional moment, right? So that would be like something happened in my life and I made this decision or I responded this way and wow, who thought I would be able to respond that way? But that's not endurance. That's getting it right in one instance. Endurance points to something deeper in our character that shows up multiple times in various situations. It's this steadfastness, it's determination, it's consistency in the face of pain and adversity, not in one circumstance, but where it starts to become a pattern. That's endurance. So when you've walked a hard road and you have endured, well, you're stronger, right? And it's not stronger for one situation. It's like an endurance that now applies to a multitude of situations. So let me describe it to you this way. You may go through something where you find your faith endured in a way that you never thought possible. Have you been there? Like you went through something and you're like, how does anybody do that? How would I possibly do that? But then, here you are. You did, or you are. When you walk a hard road, you get this endurance. Sometimes it's surprising, right? I never thought I would make it, but look, here I am. So whatever it is, whatever the trial, if you've been through some of these hard things, you know what it's like to say, I never thought it would be possible, but here I am. That's endurance. So your faith is tested, your endurance is increased, meaning your ability to keep going, to keep trusting, to keep looking for the good. It springs up out of this kind of soil of hardship. Like, there are just things that happen in our lives that produce growth that would never happen any other way. While we don't like to acknowledge it, almost every significant growth point was in one of the trials, wasn't it? Like, how many would point to the highlights of your life and say, oh, I grew so much in those highlights? It's not, is it? We're forced to grow in the low places. So your faith is tested, your endurance is increased, you keep going, and this kind of growth results in maturity. James says that we become mature and complete, or here it says perfect and complete, needing nothing, but a good word would be mature. So, go back to Bob Ross for a minute. So, I want you to imagine that Bob Ross had been painting long enough and had seen enough blobs and mistakes in his painting that he knew now that that's not a reason to panic, but I can take the painting in a whole new direction. So how did he get to that place? Because I bet you that's not how he started. I bet you he scrapped a whole bunch of paintings like, oh, well, I just ruined that one. But there's a wisdom and a maturity that came over time where he started to realize those smudges and blobs, they don't ruin it. They take it in new directions. That is a place of maturity. And only maturity can get you to those kinds of places. So that's why Bob Ross could say those are happy little accidents. And this is why James could say, when you go through hard times, look at it as an opportunity for great joy. That there's potential for the painting of your life to go in a whole new direction. Places where your faith can grow, your roots can grow deeper, where you can mature. I mean, we've been through a lot of stuff, right? No matter how old you are, you've been through a lot of stuff. And that is a consistent process of growth and maturity. This is what James is pointing to in our spiritual lives. Sometimes, if you pay attention, you can begin to see these challenges as opportunities to grow. But here's what we also know, right? You have been in circumstances where you just feel stuck, or you have no idea what to do. Like, I don't have any answers. I'm out of ideas. I'm not even sure how to pray anymore. Like, this is the situation, and I'm blank now. Like, I just don't know. And so here's what James says. Well, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will give it to you. So this is where I freely tell God, I have no answers. I'm out of ideas. I don't even know how to pray at this point. So I'm looking to you, and only to you, because I don't know what else to do. I can't muster up what I need for these circumstances. So James invites us to pray a prayer fully believing that God will supply the wisdom we're lacking. So listen to this. This is Eugene Peterson in the Message. So this is his paraphrase of this verse, but it's a good paraphrase. Ask boldly, believing without a second thought. People who worry their prayers are like waves of the sea that are blown and tossed by the wind and the storm. So, did you notice the phrase, worry their prayers? Am I the only one who read that and be like, oh, I've done that? Like, we know what we're talking about there, don't you? Like, oh, yeah, I didn't pray. I kind of worried through prayer, in a posture of prayer. And so I think it's a really good paraphrase for us. Like, it helps us get at something. Like when we bring our anxieties into prayer, but we don't pray, we just worry in a prayer posture. And that's not the same as faith-driven prayer and surrender, is it? Worrying through prayer doesn't bring peace. It's faith and surrender that lead to peace. And so if you're out of ideas, if you're out of options, ask God for wisdom and believe that He's going to give it to you, that He's not going to hold out on you, that He's not going to grudgingly look down on you and be like, really? You don't have any answers? He is going to give you what you need. So in the New Testament, as a general rule, wisdom is tied to understanding God's plan and purpose. We tend to think of wisdom only from the perspective of, how do I get through this? What do I need to do to navigate this? And that is one aspect of wisdom, but in the New Testament, it carries more than that. It is anticipating that God is up to something, and I can't see it yet. So wisdom then would be seeing beyond the current circumstances and assessing, what is God up to here? I believe He's doing something. It invites us to glimpses of things like, where's God stretching me right now? What is this rubbing against in my character? Where is my faith being challenged through this? Where is the evidence of God's strength being made perfect in my weakness? See, if you lack wisdom, James says, well, ask God. And if you start asking, He's going to give this to you. A perspective. Maybe some wisdom for your circumstances, but also wisdom for how God is at work, even in the chaos that you find yourself in the middle of. So as we come to the end, one last thing. So James keeps going. He talks about like poverty and riches. Okay, there's some trials there, right? He ends with this idea of dealing with temptation, which is another kind of trial. And so as we get ready to come to the communion table, here's what I want us to see. So he says, temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So this is the New Living Translation, but it's very descriptive, isn't it? Our own desires entice us and drag us away. So it starts here in my heart, and then those desires give birth to sinful actions. So what was going on in my heart now finds its way into the real world. And if you leave that unchecked, when sin is allowed to grow, it leads down a path of death. So we all know what's being described here. Not as a Bible verse, but as a real life experience. You know which desires are most likely to drag you away. You know which thoughts in your head or motives in your heart start to play out in the real world. And you know what it is to leave those things unchecked for a time and to see where those things lead. And this is where we come back to. And this is why we need a Savior. This is why we need the good news of the gospel. because I am so prone to being dragged away by my own desires and letting those things play out in the real world, and then watching it lead me down a road of chaos and death. As we come to the communion table, bring your trials. Bring the hard stuff. But also, let's get honest about these desires. The things that threaten to lead us astray. The things that show up in our life and you're like, there that is again. And see, the beauty of the table is this. It's this tangible reminder. See, so we don't just say, God forgives you. We actually taste it. We sip it. It's this tangible way of remembering that, yes, I am prone to that, but here's the gospel. Let's take you to John 3. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And the next verse is so awesome. God didn't send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. So using that verse and laying it over this one, God didn't send his Son into the world to see, that's your problem. He sent his Son into the world to graciously say, that's your problem, and this is why I'm here. So that you can be forgiven. So we're going to come to the table.